All right, check it out, guys. Today I'm gonna go over my key unilateral exercises for mixed martial arts performance. Let's get into it. All right, so when you're talking about unilateral strength exercises, right, we want to look at the foundational patterns, the positions, and the planes that are specific to the actual sport. Now, since MMA is a multi-directional sport, it's multi-patterned, we want to make sure that we're putting ourselves in a good position to be strong in all these planes of motion and positions. So, why we like to utilize unilateral exercises is because the benefits there are going to increase balance and symmetry. You're going to reduce the risk of non-contact injuries. You're going to improve your core balance and control. You're also going to be enhancing your overall coordination. And then also it's functional for the actual sport, right? A lot of times we're either bladed or we're using one side or the other a little bit more. And there's not a lot of times where you're just staying in one plane of motion and doing something repeatedly. So using unilateral movements will definitely help correlate over into the sport. When you talk about foundational patterns, right, you got 6 real core foundational patterns, 7 if you count gait, right? But you have the squat, which is a knee bend. You have the hinge, which is like a hip hinge or a deadlift. You have the lunge, which again, you're working unilateral there. Push, pull, and then rotate. So we want to make sure that we're using these exercises to help enhance strength and enhance balance and coordination, but also we're going to do that either single leg or one arm or the other. So positions and planes, right? You have the frontal plane, you have the sagittal plane, and you have the transverse plane, right? So if I'm doing a squat and I'm just going up and down, that's in that sagittal plane motion. If I'm going side to side, that's more frontal plane, and if I'm rotating, that's transverse plane. Very simple, right? So when you're talking about exercises, these are some of my go-to exercises, not only to improve function, but also to enhance the athleticism of the athlete and get them stronger in specific planes and positions that they're gonna use inside the cage. All right, so you have the first one is a 45-degree step back lunge. Now, you can use dumbbells, you can use a kettlebell, you can put it in the front rack position, you can go double kettlebells in the front rack position, you can do 1 dumbbell on the side, you can hold 2 dumbbells, you can even use a barbell if you want. Doesn't really matter the loading pattern, and I would switch and vary the loading pattern so that you have more variation. But as long as you're doing the step back lunge, you're working the frontal plane, the transverse plane, and from a foundational pattern, you're working the lunge. So I like to use this, especially for an accessory exercise after you do like a main compound movement, all right? This is going to allow you to get in and out of the pocket faster. If you're a striker, it also helps with takedowns. So be mindful of that. All right, guys, real quick before we get back to the video, I wanted to make the announcement that yes, I've been nominated once again for the 8th time Trainer of the Year for the World MMA Awards. Thank you to Fighters Only Magazine and everyone who has nominated me once again. If you want to show your support and vote for the Trainer of the Year, click the link down below in the description and I can win it for the 6th time. So would truly appreciate your support by clicking it down below and voting on whoever, along with all those other nominees. So make sure you go ahead and check it out, and let's get back to the video. The second one is a rear foot elevated split squat, all right? I like the rear foot elevated. One, you get a good stretch on the hip flexor, but you get to drive the knee over the toe, which is really good for takedowns. If you're shooting, right, you get that hard penetration shot, you wanna get in on your opponent and take them down. So now with that, you're working the sagittal plane, because you're going up and down, and you're working a knee bend movement or a squat pattern, right? So with this same concept, you can load this with double dumbbells, dumbbell in each hand. You can load it on one side or the other. You can put a barbell on your back, kettlebell, whatever have you. Just make sure that you're varying it each week or every other week. Single leg RDL or a good morning pattern. Now, with the single leg, you can either put your foot on like a rear foot elevated, right? You can put your foot up on the bench, or if you have a rack that you can hold, you can do that too as well. If you really want to truly go single leg, you can split stance. So having that B stance position or just a regular split stance is fine. And you want to put emphasis on the front leg. So when you're doing that RDL or the good morning, you're working the hamstring and the glute. You can load this in several different ways. Same thing. I also really like the Zercher hold. So you can use a sandbag, kettlebell, dumbbells, or a barbell and then crooks of your elbow to get that hinge position. You're gonna be working through the sagittal plane and it's a hinge type of foundational pattern. Number 4, half kneeling rotational landmine press. Doesn't really matter if you're half kneeling, if you're standing up, right? The goal is to work the upper body, single arm, and we're working through that rotation, right? So not only are you using a press variation, but you're also rotating through the transverse plane. Really good for strikers, obviously with rotating power and force. If you wanna work your strength, then you would do obviously higher loads. For more power production, I would use a lighter weight, and then I would also be ballistic with it. So I would throw it, have somebody else catch it, or you can use a band for accommodated resistance. And lastly, dumbbell bent over rows. Now, I know this kind of goes without saying and everybody kind of does it, but there's so many variations of rowing that you can do. If it's bent over, if it's, horizontal rowing, if it's a seal row that I have there. If you're trying to improve your pulling power, right? Especially if you're a jiu-jitsu player or you're just trying to work on, your arm drags or something similar to that, you gotta have a strong backside. So improving on your horizontal pulling power is gonna be important. You can use a dumbbell, you can use a kettlebell. I also like gorilla rows, and this is what I'm doing here. You're gonna work through the sagittal plane, it's a pulling variation, and then if you wanna turn it into a transverse plane type of movement where you're actually rotating all the way through, then you're gonna be working on the obliques and the rotator muscles of the core, also the lats too as well. So really good movement. If you want to stress out the forearms and the grip, use a fat grip, or you can even tie a towel around one of the dumbbells, making it a larger circumference area of space, so you have to grip it tight. If you're a gi practitioner and you want to improve your finger strength, you can go ahead and tie a rag or a towel to the actual handle and do that too as well for my gi guys out there. All right guys, so there you have it, 5 good exercises. Now you can vary these exercises and make them, a little bit more demanding if you change up maybe the tension gradient. So basically changing up, whether it be a barbell, kettlebell, dumbbell, using certain type of grip implements like a fat grips or a towel. Just work to improve by constantly stimulating and adapting to a newer stress, right? That's how you're gonna progress and that's how you're gonna get better, right? The way it's gonna transfer over into the cage on the mats is as you go ahead and get stronger in these exercises, make sure that you're still practicing the actual sport, right? So go in there, make sure you're rolling, make sure you're sparring, and you allow yourself to increase your abilities through the weight room. But again, you have to get on the mats, you have to get in the cage, you gotta spar, you gotta do the work specifically to enhance all of that. So that goes without saying, but I just wanna reiterate that. If you have any questions, hit the comments down below. If you like this video, you wanna see more of these exercises, these special exercises that I've been able to use with well over 200 professional fighters in my day. I have over 6 world champions. This is what I've been able to use, not only for myself, but my athletes. So check it out, hope you like it. See you guys next time, peace.